My name is Juliet, and I'm 22 years old. Right now, I'm standing alone in my dorm room wearing my cap and gown, staring at my phone that shows 0 messages from my family. The ceremony starts in an hour, and the realization hits me like a freight train. They're not coming. My entire family chose to skip my college graduation because my younger brother Preston has a baseball game today. Everyone picked him over me. Again. I've spent 4 years working myself to exhaustion for this moment. Graduated summa cum laude, and I don't have a single person coming to watch me walk across that stage. As I look at myself in the mirror, diploma frame, already sitting empty on my desk, I make a decision that will erase me from their lives forever. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, hit that like button because this story is for you. Make sure to subscribe because what I did next changed everything, and you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Now, let me take you back to where this all started. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I learned early that being the middle child meant being the invisible child. My father, Warren, was a high school basketball coach who lived and breathed sports. My mother, Colleen, worked in real estate and cared more about appearances than actual connection. My older sister, Sienna, was 25 and already married with 2 kids. And then there was Preston, my 17-year-old brother who could do no wrong. Preston was the golden child, the star athlete, the one who made Dad's eyes light up at dinner when he talked about his batting average or his latest game-winning hit. Sienna was the perfect daughter who'd given Mom grandchildren and fulfilled every traditional expectation. And me? I was Juliet, the bookworm, the responsible one, the girl who never caused trouble and therefore never warranted attention. I spent my entire childhood watching this pattern play out in real time. When Sienna got married at 22, we had a wedding that cost $30,000 with 200 guests and a reception that lasted until 2 in the morning. When I got accepted to college on a full academic scholarship, Mom said over dinner, "Well, someone has to be the bookworm in the family," and then immediately changed the subject to Preston's upcoming tournament. I made Dean's List every single semester of college, worked 2 part-time jobs to cover my living expenses even with the scholarship, and volunteered as a tutor for underprivileged kids. Each accomplishment was met with a distracted, "That's nice, honey," before the conversation pivoted back to whatever Sienna's kids were doing or which college scouts were looking at Preston. I threw Sienna's baby showers, attended every single one of Preston's games I could manage while juggling work and school, and helped Dad organize his coaching paperwork for years without complaint. I was the perfect daughter in every way except the one that mattered to them. I wasn't interested in sports, I wasn't giving them grandchildren, and I wasn't performing in a way that generated attention they could brag about to their friends. My high school graduation should have been a warning sign. The ceremony was at 2 in the afternoon, and Preston had a tournament game at 4. My parents sat through my graduation, barely paying attention, checking their watches every few minutes. The moment I walked off the stage with my diploma, they were already heading for the exit. "We need to get to Preston's game," Dad said, not even stopping to take a photo with me. We drove straight to the baseball field, still in my graduation dress, and I spent the rest of the day watching my brother play, while my own achievement evaporated into nothing. When I got accepted to college, I was so excited to tell them at dinner that night. I'd worked incredibly hard, maintained a 4.0 grade average, written dozens of scholarship applications, and earned a full ride to a prestigious university. I announced it with genuine joy, expecting at least some acknowledgement of the achievement. Mom smiled vaguely and said, "That's wonderful, sweetheart," and then immediately turned to Sienna to ask about her pregnancy symptoms. Dad didn't even look up from his phone where he was watching game footage. The conversation moved on within 30 seconds, and I sat there feeling like I'd just told them I'd picked up milk from the store. When I made Phi Beta Kappa in my junior year, one of the highest academic honors a student can receive, I called home to share the news. Mom answered, and I could hear the chaos of family in the background. "That's great, honey, but can I call you back? Sienna just announced she's pregnant with number 2, and everyone's here celebrating." She hung up before I could respond. They threw Sienna a surprise announcement party that very evening, complete with a cake and champagne, and nobody thought to mention my achievement even once. Every milestone of my college career followed this same pattern. My acceptance into the honors program, my research paper being published in an undergraduate journal, my selection as a student speaker at academic conferences, all of it met with polite disinterest, while Preston's sports achievements and Sienna's motherhood journey dominated every family gathering and group chat message. I started to feel like a ghost in my own family, physically present but emotionally erased. 6 months before graduation, I started reminding them about the date. I sent calendar invites to the family group chat, mailed physical invitations with the date and time clearly marked, sent text message reminders every few weeks, and even offered to adjust my schedule if they needed a different time. Every single time, they assured me they'd be there. "Of course we're coming," Mom said. "Don't be silly. We wouldn't miss your college graduation," Dad added. Sienna sent a text with a thumbs up emoji. Preston replied with, "Congrats, sis. See you there." I actually believed them. I thought maybe, finally, they'd show up for me the way they showed up for everyone else. I should have known better. The week before graduation, Preston's baseball coach scheduled a regional championship game. Same day, same time, 200 miles away, in Eugene. The family group chat exploded instantly, with messages about Preston's game, how exciting it was, what a huge opportunity for his future, which hotels were available near the field, who was driving together. Message after message after message, and not a single person mentioned my graduation ceremony happening at the exact same time. I watched the chat fill up with 40, 50, 60 messages about logistics and excitement and pride, and nobody acknowledged the conflict. Nobody said, "Wait, isn't that Juliet's graduation day?" Nobody suggested splitting up so some people could attend each event. The silence about my ceremony was deafening, and I kept waiting for someone to bring it up, to acknowledge that a choice needed to be made. The silence stretched on for days. 2 days before graduation, I couldn't take it anymore. I typed into the family group chat, trying to keep my tone light and casual, even though my hands were shaking. "So who's coming to my graduation?" The response came 30 minutes later from Mom. "Honey, you understand Preston's game is really important for his future, right? Scouts will be there. This could determine his scholarship opportunities." Dad chimed in immediately after. "You're just walking across a stage, Juliet. Preston needs us there to support him during the biggest game of his high school career." Sienna added, "I'm going to the game with the kids. They need to support their uncle, and it'll be a fun family trip. You get it, right?" I stared at my phone, reading and rereading those messages, waiting for someone to say they'd come to my graduation, waiting for someone to choose me. The chat moved on to discussing which restaurant they'd go to after Preston's game to celebrate. Not a single person said they'd attend my college graduation ceremony. Not one. The morning of graduation, I woke up at 5 in the morning, after barely sleeping. My stomach was twisted in knots, and I kept checking my phone, hoping for a message that said someone changed their mind, that at least one person would show up for me. Nothing. I went through the motions of getting ready in my silent dorm room, my roommate Margot having already left the day before for her own family celebration in California. I put on my cap and gown, did my makeup carefully, fixed my hair, took selfies. I knew I'd probably never post, because who wants to advertise that they're completely alone on one of the biggest days of their life? I kept thinking maybe someone would surprise me, show up at the last minute, prove that I mattered even a little bit. I checked my phone every 5 minutes. No calls, no texts, no messages. Just the ongoing group chat about Preston's game that I'd muted but kept checking anyway, torturing myself with updates about their road trip and their excitement and their family bonding over my brother's achievement. The ceremony was held in the university stadium, and arriving there was like walking into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Thousands of graduates poured in with their families, trailing behind them, arms full of flowers and balloons and cameras and proud smiles. I watched a girl near me get swarmed by what looked like 15 family members, all of them crying and hugging her and taking photos. I saw parents holding signs with their kids' names, grandparents dabbing at tears with tissues, little siblings bouncing with excitement. Everywhere I looked, People were surrounded by love and pride and celebration. I found my seat in the graduate section, sat down alone, and tried not to cry before the ceremony even started. The girl next to me turned and asked cheerfully, "Is your family in the stands?" I forced a smile and said, "They couldn't make it today." Her face fell with sympathy, and she squeezed my hand before turning back to wave at her own family members in the crowd. That small gesture of kindness from a stranger almost broke me. My faculty advisor, Professor Iris Hartman, found me before the ceremony began. She was a brilliant woman in her 60s, who'd mentored me through my honors thesis and had written me glowing recommendation letters for job applications. She approached my seat with a concerned expression. "Juliet, where's your family? I was hoping to finally meet them." I couldn't even pretend anymore. "They're not here. They went to my brother's baseball game instead." Professor Hartman's face transformed from confusion to anger to deep sadness in the span of seconds. She sat down next to me right there in the graduate section, completely ignoring protocol. "I'm so sorry. You deserved better than this." She stayed with me until the ceremony started, telling me how proud she was of my achievements, how I'd been one of her best students in 30 years of teaching, how my future was bright, regardless of who showed up today. The look of pity in her eyes, though, that's what I couldn't shake. She pitied me. A professor I respected deeply, felt sorry for me because my own family couldn't be bothered to attend my college graduation. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of speeches and music and the endless procession of names being called. I sat there in my chair, surrounded by 1,000 other graduates, and felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my entire life. When they reached the C's and called out Juliet Marie Caldwell, summa cum laude, I stood up and walked across that stage, with my head held high, even though everything inside me was screaming. I heard scattered applause from strangers in the audience, the polite clapping that happens for everyone, but no one screamed my name. No one stood up and cheered. No one held up a sign or took a million photos or cried with pride. I shook the dean's hand, accepted my diploma cover, knowing the actual diploma would be mailed later, smiled for the official photographer, and walked off the stage. 4 years of brutal studying, perfect grades, sacrificed social life, working multiple jobs, and I crossed that finish line completely invisible. I made it back to my seat and sat down, clutching my empty diploma cover, and something inside me fundamentally changed in that moment. After the ceremony ended, I stood on the edge of the stadium field, watching the chaos of celebration happen all around me. Families swarmed their graduates with flowers and balloons, crying and laughing and taking photo after photo. Someone's dad lifted his daughter onto his shoulders even though she was 22 years old, spinning her around while she laughed and everyone cheered. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, ran up to me holding a flower and said, "Congratulations." I knelt down and took the flower, fighting back tears, and thanked her. Her mother quickly pulled her away with an apologetic smile, clearly realizing I was alone and feeling uncomfortable about her daughter's innocent gesture. I stood there holding that single flower from a stranger's child, watching everyone else get showered with love, and I've never felt more worthless in my entire life. I walked back to my dorm in full cap and gown regalia, passing restaurant after restaurant packed with graduation parties, hearing laughter and celebration pouring out of every building, and I felt like I was walking through someone else's life. When I got back to my empty dorm room, I finally checked my phone. The family group chat had 83 new messages. Every single one was about Preston's game. Videos of him batting, photos of him sliding into home, play-by-play commentary from Dad about every inning, Mom gushing about how proud she was, Sienna posting pictures of her kids in their Preston's biggest fans t-shirts. "Preston hit a home run in the 7th inning. This is the best day ever. We're so proud of our boy. Regional champions, here we come." The messages went on and on, a digital record of everything I wasn't worth to them. I scrolled through all 83 messages with shaking hands, and there was not one single mention of me or my graduation. Not one person had thought to send me a text asking how my ceremony went. I typed out a message with tears streaming down my face. "I graduated today." I hit send and watched it appear in the chat between 2 messages about Preston's batting stance. 2 hours later, Mom finally replied, That's wonderful, sweetie. Well, celebrate next week, I promise. That was it. 4 words of acknowledgement hours after the fact, sandwiched between paragraphs of praise for my brother. I sat on my dorm room floor, still wearing my cap and gown, holding my diploma cover in one hand and my phone in the other. I looked around at the room I'd lived in for the past year, at the academic achievement certificates on my wall, at the evidence of 4 years of hard work and sacrifice, and I realized something with crystal clarity. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice they made. They didn't forget about my graduation. They didn't get the dates confused. They consciously decided that Preston's baseball game was more important than my college graduation, and then they consciously decided not to acknowledge that choice or apologize for it. This was who they were, who they'd always been, and who they would always be. I was never going to be worth their time or attention or pride. I could cure cancer, and they'd still be more excited about Preston hitting a home run. The pattern wasn't going to change because the problem wasn't me. The problem was that they'd decided long ago that I didn't matter as much as everyone else, and nothing I achieved would ever change their minds. I opened my laptop, still sitting on the floor in my graduation gown, and Googled how to legally change your name. I started reading through the requirements, the forms, the process. And with each paragraph I read, I felt something cold and clear settle in my chest. No tears, no drama, no emotional breakdown. Just quiet, final determination. They wanted me to be invisible? Fine. It'd disappear completely. It'd become someone new, someone who didn't spend her whole life waiting for people who would never see her. I downloaded the name change petition forms right there and started filling them out. My hands didn't shake. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I knew I'd never regret it. The next day, Mom called me around noon. I was packing up my dorm room, boxing up 4 years of my life, and my phone rang with her contact photo. I stared at it for a long moment before answering. "Hi, honey, how was graduation?" Her voice was so casual, so light, like she was asking how my day at the grocery store went. Not a hint of guilt or acknowledgement that she'd missed one of the most important days of my life. I kept my voice calm and even. It was fine. I walked across the stage and got my diploma cover. "That's great, sweetie. Listen, your father and I were talking, and we want to take you out to a nice dinner next weekend to celebrate." How does that sound? Next weekend. Not this weekend. Not yesterday, right after the ceremony. Next weekend, like it was some casual event that could be rescheduled at convenience. What about this weekend? I asked, knowing the answer but needing to hear her say it. "Oh, honey, we're completely exhausted from Preston's tournament weekend. Plus, Sienna's hosting a family barbecue tomorrow to celebrate Preston's championship win, and well, I'll be recovering from that. Next weekend works so much better. A barbecue. For Preston. The day after my college graduation. And I hadn't been invited. I felt nothing when she said it, and that was somehow worse than feeling angry. I wasn't invited to the barbecue. There was a pause, and then Mom laughed a little, like I'd said something silly. "Well, it's really more of a baseball celebration, you know? Sienna's making it Preston-themed with decorations and everything. You wouldn't really be interested in all that sports stuff anyway, right? You never have been." The dismissal in her voice was so casual, so automatic, like excluding me from a family event was the most natural thing in the world. "Sure, Mom. Next weekend sounds fine." I heard myself say the words like they were coming from someone else. "Wonderful. I'll make a reservation somewhere nice. We're so proud of you, honey." She hung up, and I stood there in my half-packed dorm room, staring at my phone. They were throwing my brother a celebration party the day after my graduation, and I wasn't even invited. I blocked out next weekend on my calendar and made a note. Last dinner with family. I already knew exactly what I was going to do. My friend Lacey texted me the next afternoon with photos. Lacey was dating one of Preston's teammates and had been at the barbecue. "Hey, saw your fam today. Huge party. Wish you could have been there." She sent me picture after picture, and each one was like a knife to the chest. The whole extended family was there. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins I'd grown up with. There was a giant banner hanging across the back patio that read, "Congratulations, Preston, regional champions," in massive letters. Tables covered with food, a three-tier cake decorated with baseballs and bats, red and white balloons everywhere matching Preston's team colors. Every single person I'd known my whole life was there celebrating my brother's achievement 24 hours after I'd graduated college with highest honors, and not one of them thought to even text me. Not one of them asked why I wasn't there or suggested I be included. I was so thoroughly erased from that family that my absence didn't even register as notable. I called Sienna immediately, anger finally breaking through the numbness. "Why didn't you invite me yesterday?" She sounded annoyed that I was even asking. "Jules, don't be dramatic. It was a baseball thing. You wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway. It was a family barbecue the day after my college graduation. I'm family. You're being way too sensitive about this. Besides, you don't even like sports or get involved in that stuff. Why would you want to come?" "It's not about sports, Sienna. You threw a huge party for Preston the literal day after I graduated college and didn't tell me it was happening. Oh my God, are you seriously jealous of a 17-year-old right now? That's kind of pathetic, Jules." The word hit me like a slap. I'm not jealous. I'm hurt. Well, maybe if you participated in family stuff more instead of always being buried in your books and acting like you're too good for us, you'd be more included in things. You barely even come to Preston's games. The accusation was so unfair, so divorced from reality, that I actually laughed. I've been to dozens of Preston's games while working 2 jobs and maintaining a 4.0. I threw both of your baby showers. I've helped Dad with coaching paperwork for years. But sure, I don't participate. Sienna's voice went cold. You know what, Juliet? You're right. You do all that stuff, and then you make everyone feel guilty about it. You act like a martyr, and it's exhausting. Maybe that's why nobody wants you around. I felt something break inside me. Something that had been cracking for years finally shattering completely. You know what, Sienna? You're right about one thing. I won't bother anymore. Don't be like that, you're being so dramatic. I hung up on her. I'd never hung up on a family member before in my entire life, and it felt terrifyingly liberating. That evening, my Uncle Floyd called. Uncle Floyd was Dad's younger brother, and had always been kind to me in a distant way. "Hey, kiddo. I just wanted to call and say congratulations on graduating. That's a huge accomplishment." Finally, someone acknowledged it. "Thanks, Uncle Floyd. I appreciate that. Listen, I gotta be honest with you about something, and I hope this doesn't upset you. Your parents asked me to come to Preston's game last week, said the whole family would be there for this big championship. I asked your dad about your graduation since I'd gotten your invitation in the mail, and he told me you'd specifically asked them not to come because you didn't want a big fuss made. He said you'd rather they go support Preston at his game because it meant more. Did I get that wrong?" My blood went completely cold. Everything stopped. "What?" "Yeah. Warren said you told them to skip your graduation and go to the game instead, that you preferred it that way because you're not into big ceremonies. That's why I didn't push to come to your graduation. I thought you didn't want people there. They lied. My parents lied to the extended family to cover up their choice. They rewrote the story to make themselves look supportive and make me look like the one who pushed them away. Uncle Floyd, I begged them to come to my graduation for 6 months. I sent reminders. I offered to change times. I did everything I could to make sure they'd be there. They chose Preston's game over my graduation, and then they lied to everyone about it." There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. "Jesus Christ, Jules. I'm so sorry. If I'd known the truth, I would have been there. Your Aunt Daphne would have been there. Hell, half the family would have shown up if we'd known you wanted us there. It's not your fault. Thank you for telling me." "Do your parents know you know they lied?" "Not yet, but they will." We said goodbye, and I sat there processing this new information. It wasn't just neglect. It wasn't just choosing Preston over me. They'd actively lied to the entire extended family, painted me as the difficult daughter who didn't want a fuss, all to avoid looking like the bad parents who skipped their daughter's college graduation. They were managing their image, controlling the narrative, and throwing me under the bus to do it. I spent the next week researching every detail of legally changing my name in Oregon. The process was straightforward. File a petition with the circuit court. Publish a notice in a newspaper for public record. attend a hearing where a judge reviews your petition, and if approved, to receive a court order that legally changes your name. The whole process costs around $300 in filing fees and publication costs, and takes between 8 to 12 weeks from filing to final approval. I had the money saved from graduation gifts sent by distant relatives who actually cared enough to acknowledge my achievement, aunts and uncles and family friends who'd mailed cards with checks inside. The irony wasn't lost on me, that I'd be using their congratulations money to erase myself from the family. Choosing my new name took 3 days of careful consideration. I didn't want something too unusual that would draw attention or questions, but I needed something completely disconnected from my past, something that felt like a fresh start rather than just a slight modification. I thought about places I'd always wanted to visit, about characters from books who'd meant something to me, about the kind of person I wanted to become. Finally, I decided, Sloane Adelaide Brooks. Sloane felt strong and independent, the name of someone who didn't wait around for other people's approval. Adelaide was my grandmother on my mother's side, the one who died when I was 10 years old, the only person in that entire family who'd made me feel genuinely seen and loved. Brooks was a common surname, easy to blend in with, hard to trace. When I wrote out Sloane Adelaide Brooks for the first time, it felt right in a way Juliet Caldwell never had. Perfect timing arrived in the form of a job offer. I'd been applying to marketing positions at tech companies throughout my senior year, and a Seattle-based startup called Cascade Digital had offered me an entry-level marketing coordinator position with a decent salary and benefits package. Seattle was only 3 hours north of Portland, close enough that it should have been easy for family to visit, but far enough that it felt like a completely different world. The company wanted me to start in 3 months, which gave me exactly enough time to get through the name change process, graduate, pack up my life, and disappear. I accepted the offer immediately via email, signed the contract as Juliet Caldwell with a note that I'd be updating my legal name before my start date, and they responded that it was no problem at all. Nobody in Seattle would ever know Juliet Caldwell. I'd arrive as Sloane Brooks, fresh start, blank slate. I started slowly pulling away from the family group chat, implementing my exit strategy gradually so they wouldn't notice anything was wrong until it was too late. I responded less and less frequently to messages, let conversations die out without contributing, stopped initiating any contact myself. When Mom finally got around to scheduling that celebration dinner she'd promised and texted me 3 potential dates, I declined all of them with vague excuses about being busy with job applications and apartment hunting. She didn't push back. Nobody pushed back. Nobody seemed to notice or care that I was slowly fading out of their daily lives. The group chat continued its usual rhythm of Preston's summer baseball league updates and Sienna's kids' activities, and my silence went completely unremarked upon. It was almost funny how easy it was to disappear from people who'd never really been looking at you in the first place. Professor Hartman called me in for a meeting at a coffee shop near campus. She'd officially retired at the end of the semester, and she wanted to check in on my post-graduation plans. I told her everything. The name change, the job in Seattle, the plan to cut all contact with my family. I expected her to try to talk me out of it, to say something about forgiveness or giving them another chance. Instead, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You know, Juliet, or Sloane, I should start calling you. I've been teaching for 30 years. I've seen a lot of family dynamics play out in my students' lives. Sometimes the family we're born into isn't our real family. Sometimes we have to build our own, find people who actually see us and value us. What you're doing takes incredible courage. She wrote her personal cell phone number on a napkin and slid it across to me. If you ever need a reference, a recommendation, or just someone to talk to, you call me. I mean it. You're going to do amazing things, and am honored I got to be part of your journey. My roommate Margot came back from her family vacation in California and immediately knew something was different. We'd been roommates for 2 years, and she could read me better than anyone in my biological family ever had. Jules, what happened while I was gone? You're acting weird. I told her everything. Graduation day, the barbecue I wasn't invited to, the lies my parents told, the name change petition I'd already filed. Margot's face went through shock to fury to determination. You're actually doing this. You're changing your name and leaving. I am. Holy shit, can I help? What do you need? I need someone to be my witness at the court hearing. And I need you to keep this secret from everyone until I'm gone. Margot pulled me into a fierce hug. Your family doesn't deserve you, Jules. They never did. Yes, I'll be your witness. Yes, I'll keep your secret. And yes, you're absolutely doing the right thing. I made a detailed timeline and checklist for my exit strategy, breaking down every step I needed to complete before vanishing. Step 1. File legal name change petition. Completed and submitted to the courthouse with my $300 filing fee. Step 2. Secure housing in Seattle, actively searching apartment listings and scheduling video tours. Step 3. After court approval, transfer all accounts, documents, and identification to new name, including social security card, driver's license, bank accounts, email addresses, and professional credentials. Step 4. On moving day, block all family members on all platforms including phone numbers, social media, and email. Step 5. Vanish completely on moving day, with no goodbye, no explanation, no final conversation. They didn't show up for my biggest day, so I wouldn't show up for any of theirs ever again. The plan was methodical, thorough, and irreversible. I ran a test to confirm what I already knew. Before graduation, it had 1,247 friends on Facebook, built up over years of being a good student, a friendly person, someone who was always available to help others. The night of graduation, I posted exactly one thing: a photo of me in my cap and gown holding my diploma cover, taken by the official photographer. My caption was simple: summa cum laude. 4 years of hard work. I posted it at 8 p.m. on graduation day and waited. 24 hours later, the post had exactly 43 likes from distant acquaintances, former classmates, and people I barely knew. 0 likes, 0 comments, 0 acknowledgement from Mom, Dad, Sienna, or Preston. The same day, Dad had liked 3 separate posts about Preston's baseball game. Mom had commented on 4 photos of Sienna's kids. Sienna had shared a recipe video. Not one member of my immediate family acknowledged my graduation post. I deleted my Facebook account that night. Over 1,000 connections, gone in one click, and I felt nothing but relief. 2 weeks after graduation, the final straw arrived in the form of a family group chat announcement. Mom sent a message with multiple exclamation points: "Family dinner Sunday at our house. Everyone must come. We have exciting news to share." I almost didn't go. I was in the middle of packing my dorm room, boxing up books and clothes, and the accumulated debris of 4 years of college life. But curiosity got the better of me, or maybe it was one last masochistic need to confirm that leaving was the right choice. I drove to Portland on Sunday, walked into my childhood home, and sat through dinner making small talk while everyone speculated about the big announcement. After dessert, Mom and Dad stood up with huge smiles. "We wanted to tell everyone together that we're throwing Preston a surprise 18th birthday party next month, and it's going to be huge." They'd rented an event venue, hired a DJ and a caterer, invited 200 people, created a theme called Future Baseball Star with professional decorations. The budget was over $5,000. For his 18th birthday. My college graduation had gotten me $0, 0 party, 0 acknowledgement, beyond a text message sent hours late. I sat there at the dining room table, smiled, said that sounds great, and knew with absolute certainty that this was the last time I would ever see these people. 8 weeks after I filed my petition, the court date finally arrived, July 15th at 9 in the morning. Margot drove me to the Multnomah County Courthouse in downtown Portland, and my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my folder of documents. This was real now, official, and legal, and irreversible. No turning back after today. We walked through security, found the correct courtroom, and sat in the hallway waiting for my case to be called. Margot squeezed my hand. "You've got this. You're doing the right thing." I wanted to believe her, but part of me still felt like I was doing something terrible and unforgivable, like changing my name was a betrayal rather than an act of self-preservation. Judge Miriam Fletcher was a woman in her mid-60s with silver hair and kind eyes behind rectangular glasses. My case was called, and I stood at the podium in front of her bench while she reviewed my petition. Miss Caldwell, you're petitioning to change your legal name to Sloane Adelaide Brooks. Can you tell me your reason for this change? Id prepared a simple, professional answer that wouldn't make me cry in front of a judge. I want a fresh start in my professional life as I begin my career, Your Honor. Judge Fletcher looked at me over her glasses with an expression that made me feel like she could see right through me. That's the official reason you wrote on your petition. What's the real reason? Something about her tone, gentle but direct, broke down the wall Id built. My family doesn't see me, Your Honor. They've never seen me. I graduated summa cum laude from college, and not one person in my immediate family came to my graduation because my brother had a baseball game. I'm changing my name because I want to become someone new, someone who matters, someone who isn't invisible. Judge Fletcher nodded slowly, setting down my petition and looking at me with understanding that felt almost maternal. I've been a family court judge for 30 years, Miss Caldwell. I've presided over hundreds of name change petitions, and I can always tell when someone needs this change for their own survival versus when it's a whim. You need this. I can see it. She signed my petition right there without any additional questions. Your name change is granted, effective immediately. Good luck, Sloane Brooks. I hope you find the life you deserve. Walking out of that courtroom with my official court order in hand, I was no longer Juliette Marie Caldwell. That girl who spent her whole life waiting for her family to love her was legally dead. Margot squealed and hugged me right there in the courthouse hallway. You did it! You're officially Sloane Adelaide Brooks. It felt surreal and terrifying and absolutely right. The next 2 weeks were a bureaucratic whirlwind of updating every official document and account. I took my court order to the Social Security office and changed my Social Security card. I went to the DMV and got a new driver's license with my new name and a photo where I looked genuinely happy for the first time in years. I contacted every bank account, credit card, student loan servicer, and utility company to update my legal name. I requested that my university update my diploma and transcripts with my new name, and the registrar's office processed the change without any issues. I emailed Cascade Digital with my court order attached, and HR responded within hours that they'd updated all my employment paperwork and I'd be starting as Sloane Brooks. Within 2 weeks, Juliette Caldwell existed only on old documents locked away in file cabinets and fading memories. I found a studio apartment in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood through an online listing. It was small, only 400 square feet with a tiny kitchen and a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in, but it had a big window with good light, and it was walking distance from my new job. The rent was $850 a month, which would stretch my entry-level salary thin but was manageable. I signed the lease as Sloane Adelaide Brooks, paid my deposit and first month's rent, and scheduled my move-in date for August 3rd. I'd been saving money for years while my family spent thousands on Preston's sports equipment and Sienna's kids' activities, and I had enough for furniture, moving costs, and a small emergency fund. Everything was falling into place. 1 week before my planned move, Preston's massive 18th birthday party happened. I attended, making one last appearance as Juliette before I disappeared forever. The event venue was decorated like a baseball stadium, with artificial grass carpet, cardboard cutout figures of famous players, and team banners everywhere. 200 people showed up: family, friends, Preston's teammates, neighbors, my parents' work colleagues, everyone that ever met. Preston received a used Honda Civic worth about $10,000 as his main gift from Mom and Dad, keys presented with a giant bow while everyone cheered and took photos. He got custom baseball training equipment worth at least $2,000. Dad announced they were sending him to an elite baseball training camp in California for 2 weeks that cost $3,000. The total value of gifts and the party itself exceeded $20,000 for an 18th birthday. My college graduation got me a text message and a promised dinner that never happened. I sat at a table in the back corner of the venue, watching this spectacle unfold, when my great-aunt Cecilia lowered herself into the chair next to me. Cecilia was 82 years old, sharp as a tack, and my grandmother Adelaide's older sister. I asked your mother last week why they didn't throw you a graduation party like this beautiful celebration for Preston. Do you know what she told me? My heart stopped. What did she say? She said you didn't want one, that you told them you preferred a quiet family dinner instead of a big fuss. But I've known your mother since the day she was born, and I can always tell when she's lying to me. Cecilia pulled an envelope from her purse and pressed it into my hands. This is for you, for your graduation. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I had hip surgery scheduled months in advance, or I would have moved heaven and earth to attend. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check for $1,000 and a handwritten note on cream-colored stationery. To my dear Juliet, the first person in our family to graduate summa cum laude from university. Your great-grandfather Adelaide would be so incredibly proud of you. I know I am. You're going to do remarkable things with your life. All my love, Aunt Cecilia. I started crying right there at Preston's birthday party, tears streaming down my face while celebration and laughter swirled around us. Cecilia squeezed my hand hard. You're going to be all right, sweetheart. You're going to do great things, with or without them. Some families don't deserve the children they're given. Thank you. This means more than you know. I know exactly what it means. Now go live your life. I left the party early, walking out while everyone was distracted by cake cutting and speeches. Not one person noticed me leave. I drove back to my dorm and finished packing. Moving day was in 4 days, and I was done with all of this forever. That night, Mom sent a message to the family group chat with photos from the party. What an incredible celebration for our Preston. Such a special night with family. Preston, we love you so much. Sienna, thank you for helping with decorations. Everything looked perfect. Warren, you gave the most beautiful speech. Family is everything. Shed tagged everyone in the message. Dad, Sienna, Preston, her sisters, dads, brothers, even some cousins. Everyone except me. I'd been sitting right there at the party, physically present in that room. And she managed to write a message thanking everyone, and somehow skip over me completely, like I hadn't existed. I took a screenshot of that message. I'd need it later when guilt tried to creep in, when I second-guessed my decision to leave. I'd need to remember exactly why I was doing this. Moving day arrived on August 3rd at 7 in the morning. Margot and Professor Hartman showed up at my dorm with coffee and determination to help me load everything I owned into a rented 10-foot U-Haul truck. Everything I owned fit easily. 3 boxes of books, 2 boxes of clothes, 1 box of kitchen supplies, a bag of bedding, my laptop and electronics, and a few small pieces of furniture I'd accumulated over the years. 22 years of life packed into the back of a small truck in under an hour. I'd lived so small, taken up so little space. Even my physical belongings reflected how I'd been trained to minimize myself in that family. Before leaving Portland forever, I drove to the post office and mailed 5 letters, 1 addressed to Mom, 1 to Dad, 1 to Sienna, 1 to Preston, and 1 to the general family address. Each letter was identical, 1 page long, printed in plain Times New Roman font, so there'd be no emotion in the handwriting. By the time you read this, it'll be gone. I've legally changed my name and started a new life in a city you don't know. I won't be contacting any of you again. You made it abundantly clear where I stand in this family. I'm choosing myself now. Don't look for me. Juliet. Short, final, and impossible to misunderstand. I dropped all 5 letters in the blue mailbox outside the post office and felt a weight lift off my shoulders that had been carrying my entire life. As Margot drove the U-Haul north on Interstate 5 toward Seattle, I sat in the passenger seat with my phone in my lap and systematically erased my old life. Blocked Mom's number, blocked Dad's number, blocked Sienna's number, blocked Preston's number, blocked every aunt, uncle, and cousin who'd attended that birthday party, and ignored me. I left the family group chat with a single tap that felt like stepping out of prison. I deleted Instagram, Twitter, every social media account connected to Juliet Caldwell. Then I created new accounts under the name Sloane Brooks with privacy settings locked down completely, profiles set to private, location services turned off. In 1 hour, I digitally erased Juliet Caldwell from existence and became someone new. We arrived at my Seattle apartment at 2 in the afternoon. The building was old but well maintained, with hardwood floors and big windows. My studio was on the third floor, and yes, it was tiny, but it was mine in a way nothing had ever been mine before. View of the tree-lined street below. A galley kitchen barely big enough for one person, a bathroom with a window that actually opened. Margot helped me unpack while we ordered pizza from a place down the street, and for the first time in my life, I lived completely alone without roommates or family. "How do you feel?" Margot asked as we sat on my air mattress eating pizza straight from the box because I didn't have furniture yet. "Free. Terrified. But free." Margot hugged me goodbye that evening before driving back to Portland. "Text me every day," or "Ill worry." Professor Hartman called that night. "Proud of you, Sloane. Go enjoy your new life. You've earned it." The first night as Sloane Brooks, I sat on my air mattress in my empty apartment, eating leftover pizza and looking around at my new life. No photos of family on the walls because I hadn't brought any. No high school yearbooks or childhood mementos. No reminders of Juliet Caldwell anywhere, except in my own memories. Just Sloane Adelaide Brooks, and the future stretching out ahead of me like an open road. I fell asleep that night feeling lighter than I had in years. Like I'd been walking around with chains wrapped around my chest, and someone had finally cut them off. The letters arrived at my family's houses 2 days later, and my phone started ringing at 6 in the morning on August 5th. Unknown numbers, obviously family members calling from phones I hadn't blocked yet, or using other people's phones to get around my blocks. I didn't answer any of them. Voicemails started piling up, little red notification dots multiplying on my screen. I listened to exactly one, from Mom, just to confirm what I already knew about how they'd react. Mom's voicemail was 2 minutes of crying and accusations. "Juliet, what is this letter? What do you mean you changed your name? Where are you? This is absolutely insane. You can't just leave your family like this. You need to call me back right now. We need to talk about this immediately. You're being incredibly dramatic and hurtful to everyone who loves you. Think about what this is doing to your father, to your brother, to Sienna. Preston doesn't understand why you're doing this, and it's breaking his heart. Call me back." Not one word of apology, not one acknowledgement of why Eid left or what they'd done. Just accusations that I was being dramatic and hurtful, that I was the problem, that I needed to come back and fix the damage it caused by leaving. I deleted the voicemail and blocked that number too. Margot, who Id kept connected on all social media, started sending me screenshots throughout the day. The family had created a new group chat called Find Juliet and added every family member, every family friend, every neighbor and acquaintance they could think of. Mom's message to this massive group: "Our daughter Juliet has run away from home and is refusing all contact with her family. If anyone knows where she is or has heard from her, please tell us immediately. She's clearly having some kind of breakdown and needs help. We're worried sick." Dad's message: "Juliet, if you're seeing this through friends, please come home. We can work this out. We love you and we're concerned about your mental state." Sienna's message: "I always knew she was emotionally unstable. This is so selfish and cruel. Mom and Dad are absolutely devastated. If anyone has information, please share it. They were painting me as crazy, dangerous, having a breakdown. Anything to avoid taking responsibility for their own actions." That afternoon, my Uncle Floyd somehow got my new phone number, probably through Margot's family connections. He texted, "Sloane, it's Uncle Floyd. I'm not going to ask you to come back or try to convince you of anything. I just want you to know I understand why you left. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you more when I had the chance. You deserve so much better than how they treated you. Good luck, kiddo. I'm rooting for you." I cried reading that text, sitting on my air mattress in my empty apartment. I responded, "Thank you, Uncle Floyd. That means everything to me." He replied immediately, "I told them the truth about graduation and about the lies they told me. They're denying everything, saying I misunderstood. Just so you know what you're dealing with." I wasn't surprised. Of course they were denying it. Admitting the truth would mean accepting responsibility, and they'd never been capable of that. By day 3, Margot reported that the family narrative had shifted and solidified. Mom was telling everyone that Id had a mental breakdown from the stress of graduating and starting my career. Dad was saying Id always been overly sensitive and prone to emotional overreaction. Sienna posted on Facebook, "Please keep my sister in your prayers. She's going through an incredibly difficult time and has cut off contact with her family. We love her and hope she gets the help she needs." They were martyring themselves, playing the role of concerned parents and siblings with a troubled family member. Nobody knew about the graduation they'd skipped, the lies they'd told, the years of neglect and erasure. All everyone saw was their carefully constructed narrative of poor them dealing with their mentally unstable daughter who'd cruelly abandoned them. My first weekend in Seattle, I woke up Saturday morning with no obligations, no family dinner to attend, no Preston's game to pretend to enjoy, no Sienna's kid's birthday party to buy gifts for and smile through. Nothing. I walked to a coffee shop down the street, ordered a latte, and sat by the window reading a novel for pleasure for the first time in months. I ate lunch alone at a Thai restaurant and didn't feel lonely, just peaceful. I went to a bookstore and bought 3 novels without worrying about whether I could afford them. I came home and cooked dinner in my tiny kitchen, just scrambled eggs and toast, but it felt like the most luxurious meal I'd ever eaten. It was the most peaceful day I'd had in years, maybe ever. No performance, no trying to earn attention or love, no waiting to be disappointed. Just me, alone, free. Week 2 in Seattle brought a sustained guilt campaign through voicemails from new numbers I kept having to block. Mom's voicemails followed predictable themes. "How could you do this to us after everything we've done for you? Your father is heartbroken and barely eating. Preston cries himself to sleep at night asking what he did wrong. Do you even care what you're putting us through?" Using Preston as a weapon was particularly cruel because I didn't hate my brother. I hated that my parents had loved him more, had chosen him over me repeatedly, but Preston himself was just a kid who'd been made the golden child through no fault of his own. But my parents would never understand that distinction. To them, leaving the family meant I hated everyone equally, when really I just needed to save myself. On day 10 in my new life, there was a knock on my apartment door at 9 in the morning. I opened it to find 2 police officers standing in the hallway. My stomach dropped. "Mom, are you Juliet Caldwell?" I took a breath and stood up straight. "No, officer, I'm Sloane Brooks." Juliet Caldwell was my former legal name, which I changed through the court system. I showed them my new driver's license and the certified copy of my court order that I'd learned to keep handy. We received a missing persons report filed by Warren and Colleen Caldwell, stating that their daughter Juliet is missing and they're concerned for her safety. I'm not missing. I'm a 22-year-old adult who made the choice to discontinue contact with my biological family. I'm safe, employed, and living my life. The officers looked uncomfortable, clearly realizing they'd been pulled into a family drama. "Your parents seem very worried about you, ma'am." My parents ignored my college graduation to attend my brother's baseball game, then lied to extended family about why they didn't attend. I chose to remove myself from that toxic environment. I'm not in danger. I simply don't want contact with them. The officers exchanged glances and took notes. "Well, file a report that you've been located and are safe. We do have to include your current address in our report since you're not actually missing." I nodded, knowing this was coming. "I understand. Thank you for checking on me." They left, and I immediately knew my parents would get my address from the police report. It'd have to be prepared for them to show up at some point, but at least now there was an official record that I was a competent adult making my own choices, not a mentally unstable person having a breakdown like they were telling everyone. 3 days after the police visit, I got a text from an unknown number. "Jules, it's me. Please talk to me. I'm your sister. I love you, and I miss you." I ignored it. Another text came an hour later. "I know Mom and Dad aren't perfect, but you're tearing this family apart. We need you to come home and fix this." I felt anger flare up, and responded before I could stop myself. "I'm not tearing anything apart, Sienna. There was nothing there to tear. You all made that abundantly clear." Her response came immediately. "That's not fair. We all love you. We've always loved you. You didn't come to my graduation. You threw Preston a party the next day and didn't invite me. You called me unstable for having normal human emotions. That's not love. You're remembering things wrong, Jules. It wasn't like that. Gaslighting. Again, the same tactic that always used. Making me question my own memories and experiences. I have texts, Sienna. I have proof of everything. You can lie to yourself, but you can't lie to me anymore. I blocked the number. Week 3 brought financial manipulation. I received an email alert from my bank flagging suspicious activity on my account. My parents had attempted to access my checking account using old emergency contact information from when ID first opened the account at 16 years old. The bank's fraud detection system blocked them automatically and required me to verify my identity and update all security settings. I immediately removed them from every account, changed all passwords to random strings of letters and numbers, updated all security questions with fake answers they'd never guess. What were they trying to do? Check my transactions to track down my location? Take money from my account? I'd never know, but the violation was crystal clear. They felt entitled to access my life, even after I'd explicitly cut contact. I started seeing a therapist in Seattle because I knew I needed professional help processing everything. Dr. Fern Whitman's office was in a cozy building in Fremont, and she was a woman in her 50s with warm eyes and an incredibly calm presence. In our first session, I gave her the overview. Graduated college, family skipped graduation, changed my name, moved cities, cut all contact. In our third session, she asked me to describe my childhood in detail, and as I talked, patterns I'd never been able to name started emerging. Dr. Whitman stopped me halfway through. What you're describing is a textbook scapegoat and golden child dynamic. In dysfunctional families, one child receives all the positive attention and praise, while another child gets blamed for everything wrong. You were the scapegoat, Preston was the golden child, and Sienna occupied the role of perfect daughter. You were set up to fail from the beginning. Nothing you achieved would ever be enough because your role in that family system wasn't to succeed, it was to make everyone else look better by comparison. Hearing it named, having my experience validated by a professional, was devastating and liberating at the same time. Finding my people in Seattle happened faster than I expected. At work, I met Ruby, a senior marketing coordinator who took me under her wing immediately. Ruby was 30 years old, hilarious, and had no filter whatsoever. She invited me to happy hour after my first week, introduced me to her friend group, and suddenly, I had a social life. Ruby's friends became my friends. Zachary, who worked in tech support and told the worst dad jokes imaginable. Daphne, who was a graphic designer and had tattoos covering both arms. Troy, who managed a coffee shop and made the best lattes I'd ever tasted. They were warm, inclusive, funny, and nobody knew Juliet Caldwell. They only knew Sloane Brooks, and they liked her for who she was, not for what she could do for them. I didn't have to perform or prove anything. I could just exist, and that was enough. Thanksgiving arrived in November, my first major holiday away from family. My work email inbox filled up with messages because they'd somehow found my work address. Mom's email, Sloane or Juliet or whatever you're calling yourself now, please come home for Thanksgiving. The family won't be complete without you. We're willing to put aside our hurt feelings and welcome you back if you're ready to apologize for the pain you've caused. The irony of that message was so thick I almost laughed. I'd caused pain. I was the one who needed to apologize. No acknowledgement of their actions, just demands that I come back and fix what I'd broken. I didn't respond. Ruby invited me to Friendsgiving at her apartment with 15 people, potluck style. I brought homemade apple pie using Aunt Cecilia's recipe, and everyone raved about it. We played ridiculous card games and told stories and laughed until my stomach hurt. I realized I'd never laughed like that at family Thanksgiving. It'd always been tense, waiting for the next moment of being overlooked or dismissed. In early December, Margot sent me an urgent screenshot. Sienna had posted a long Facebook essay titled "When Family Leaves" that painted her as the heartbroken sister of a woman who'd abandoned her family without explanation or reason. She described our childhood as idyllic and full of love and support. She wrote about how she was praying every single day for me to get the mental health treatment I so desperately need. 300 people commented with messages of support for Sienna, calling me selfish and ungrateful and cruel. Not one person in those comments knew the truth. Margot texted, "I can comment and tell everyone the truth if you want. It'll blow up her whole narrative right now." I thought about it for a long time before responding. No. Let them think what they want. The people who matter know the truth. I don't need to defend myself to strangers. Margot replied, "You're a better person than me. It'd scorch the earth. I used to think I needed everyone to understand my side, but the truth is, nothing I say will change their minds. They've chosen their narrative, and they need me to be the villain. Let them have their story. I have my actual life." Mid-December brought a Christmas card to my apartment address, confirming they'd gotten my location from the police report. The envelope was addressed to Juliet Caldwell in Mom's handwriting at my Seattle address. Inside was a family photo taken at Preston's birthday party, everyone smiling with arms around each other in front of the baseball-themed decorations. I wasn't in the photo, obviously, but there was no space for me even in the composition of the image. They'd never intended to include me. The printed message inside read, "Merry Christmas from the Caldwell family. We miss you and hope you'll come home soon." Generic, unsigned, distant. I threw the card in my kitchen trash without a second thought. I didn't send one back. That silence said everything they needed to hear. February arrived, 6 months after Ed left Portland, and I was genuinely thriving in Seattle. Ed received a promotion at work to junior marketing manager with a salary increase that made my finances comfortable instead of tight. I had close friends who invited me to activities every weekend. Therapy with Dr. Whitman was helping me process years of trauma and build healthier relationship patterns. It almost stopped thinking about my family on a daily basis, the obsessive loops of hurt and anger fading into background noise. Then, on a Saturday afternoon in mid-February, there was a knock on my apartment door. I opened it expecting a package delivery. Mom and Sienna stood in my hallway. I froze completely, hands still on the doorknob, staring at them like they were hallucinations. "Juliet, we need to talk," Mom said, and before I could respond, she pushed past me into my apartment. Sienna followed right behind her. "You can't just barge into my home," I said, but they were already sitting on my couch like they owned the place. Mom started crying immediately, which I recognized as a manipulation tactic Shed used my entire life. "How could you do this to us? Change your name? Disappear without a trace? Do you have any idea how humiliating this has been for us?" Humiliating? Not hurtful, not painful, not concerning. Humiliating for her. That told me everything I needed to know about why they'd come. I stayed standing near the door, arms crossed, keeping physical distance between us. "You didn't come to my graduation." Sienna actually rolled her eyes like I was being ridiculous. "Oh my God, we've been over this 1,000 times. Preston's game was important for his future. More important than 4 years of my life? More important than the biggest achievement I'd ever accomplished." Mom wiped her tears with a tissue Shed pulled from her purse. "You're still stuck on something that happened 6 months ago? That's ancient history, Juliet. You need to let it go and move forward. It wasn't just graduation. It was everything. My entire life with you people." Id prepared for this moment, even though Id hoped it would never come. I pulled out my phone and opened a note I'd been keeping since the day I left. A comprehensive list of every slight, every dismissal, every time Preston or Sienna had received something I hadn't, every moment it'd been erased or overlooked or pushed aside. I read it out loud while they sat on my couch, and the list took 10 full minutes to get through. Every missed event, every lie they'd told, every time they'd chosen someone else over me. When I finished, silence filled my small apartment. Mom's face had gone pale. Sienna looked angry. Mom's voice shook when she finally spoke. "That's not how any of this happened. You're remembering everything wrong, seeing it through a distorted lens. Gaslighting again, the same tactic, denying my reality." Sienna leaned forward with frustration written all over her face. "You're being so dramatic about everything. Every single family has favorites. That's just life. You couldn't handle not being the center of attention every second, so you threw a tantrum and ran away. I never wanted to be the center of attention, Sienna. I just wanted to matter. I wanted someone to show up for me the way I showed up for all of you. Mom's crying intensified. You do matter. You're our daughter. We love you. Then why didn't you come to my graduation? Why did you lie to Uncle Floyd and tell him I didn't want you there? Mom's face went completely pale, confirming what I already knew. Floyd talks too much and misunderstood the situation. So you did lie. You told him I asked you not to come. Silence. That was my answer. Sienna stood up abruptly, clearly done with the emotional conversation. Look, the truth is, this whole situation is making our family look really bad. People are asking questions and making judgments. You need to come back home and fix this mess you created. There it was, the real reason for their visit. Not because they missed me or loved me or wanted a relationship, because my absence was embarrassing them socially. You want me to come back so your friends stop asking uncomfortable questions. Mom reached for me with tears still streaming down her face. We want you to come back, because you're family, Juliet. Family stays together no matter what. I stopped being family the day you chose Preston's baseball game over my college graduation. Actually, I stopped being family years before that. I just finally accepted the truth. Sienna grabbed her purse and stood up, anger radiating off her. Fine. You want to be selfish and throw away your entire family over petty grudges and imagined slights? Do it. But don't come crawling back to us when you realize you're completely alone in the world and you have nobody. I stood up straighter, looking her directly in the eyes. I'm not alone. I have friends who actually show up for me when it matters. I have a career I built without your help. I have a therapist helping me heal from years of your dysfunction. I'm happier now as Sloane Brooks than I ever was as Juliet Caldwell in your family. Mom started crying even harder, pulling out the big manipulation guns. Your father is going to be absolutely devastated when I tell him about this conversation. You know he has a heart condition, and this stress could kill him. Using Dad's health to manipulate me, weaponizing guilt about his heart problems that might not even be real. Dad made his choices. He chose to skip my graduation. He chose to lie about it. Those were his decisions. And I've made mine. As they walked toward my apartment door to leave, Sienna turned around one last time. Preston asks about you all the time, you know. He really misses his big sister. He doesn't understand why you hate him so much. Trying one last guilt trip, weaponizing my brother's feelings. Tell Preston I hope he gets that baseball scholarship he's been working toward. Tell him I'm genuinely sorry he got caught in the middle of all this. But tell him the truth about why I left instead of whatever lies you've been feeding him. Sienna's face hardened. We're not telling him anything. You're the one who abandoned us. That's on you. Exactly. Remember that. I left. I didn't abandon you. I freed myself from a toxic situation. There's a difference, even if you'll never understand it. I opened my apartment door and waited. They walked out without another word. I closed the door behind them, locked it, and slid down to the floor. I sat there shaking, not from sadness but from pure rage. They'd invaded my space, demanded I fix their reputation, offered zero apologies or acknowledgement of their actions, and confirmed everything I'd known about why I left. I called Ruby immediately, and she showed up at my apartment 30 minutes later with wine and Chinese takeout. They actually showed up at your apartment? That's completely insane. They're desperate to control the narrative. They can't stand that I took that power away from them. What are you going to do? Absolutely nothing. I'm going to continue living my life, and that silence will drive them crazier than any confrontation ever could. 2 days after their visit, Margot sent me an emergency text with screenshots. The family had posted in their group chat, and someone had forwarded the messages to her. Mom. We found Juliet living in Seattle. We tried to reason with her and offer reconciliation, but she's completely brainwashed by therapy and new friends. She's lost to us. She refuses to acknowledge the pain she's caused or take responsibility for abandoning her family. Dad. I always knew college would ruin her. Too much liberal education, not enough practical common sense or family values. Sienna. She's completely lost and needs serious psychological help that she's refusing to get. All we can do now is pray that she eventually sees the truth and comes back to us. Preston's message stood out. Can someone please explain to me what actually happened? Nobody will tell me the real story, and I'm tired of all these vague comments. I want to talk to Juliet myself. Preston, at 18 years old, was finally starting to ask the right questions. Nobody answered him in the chat. That night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Sloane, it's Preston. Sienna gave me your number but told me not to contact you. Can we talk? I need to understand what happened. My little brother, the golden child, the one who'd been given everything while I got nothing, was reaching out. But had also been weaponized against me without his knowledge or consent, made into a tool to keep me in line. I stared at that message for over an hour, debating whether responding would be a mistake. Finally, I typed back. I'll meet you for coffee. Just you, nobody else. No parents, no Sienna. Preston replied immediately. Deal. Can you come to Portland? Making me do all the work, expecting me to come back to the city. It escaped. No. If you want to talk to me, you come to Seattle. I'm not going back to Portland. Preston hesitated for several minutes before responding. Okay. This Saturday? I can drive up in the morning. Saturday works. I'll text you the address of a coffee shop. Making him work for this conversation, making him prove he cared enough to make the effort. I told Dr. Whitman about the planned meeting in our next session. How do you feel about seeing Preston? Conflicted. Has not the villain in this story. He was just a kid who got made into the golden child through no fault of his own. But he benefited from the system that hurt me, and I don't know if he's capable of understanding that. Doctor. Whitman nodded thoughtfully. Are you prepared to hear his perspective, even if it's defensive or doesn't acknowledge your pain? I think so, but I'm also prepared to walk away if he starts defending them or making excuses. I've worked too hard on my healing to let anyone drag me backward. Saturday morning arrived with gray Seattle rain and my nerves wound tight. I got to the coffee shop in Capitol Hill at 9:45, 15 minutes early, and chose a table by the window where I could watch the street. At 10 o'clock exactly, I saw Preston walk up the sidewalk, and my heart did something complicated. He looked older than I remembered, taller, filled out from teenager into young man, still wearing his high school baseball jacket, even though had graduated months ago. He pushed through the coffee shop door, spotted me immediately, and hesitated. Sloane. Hearing him use my new name instead of Jules felt incredibly significant, like he was acknowledging this new version of me. Hi, Preston. Sit down. He ordered coffee and sat across from me, fidgeting with his cup and not making eye contact. I don't really know where to start with this conversation. I waited, letting him struggle through it. Start with why you wanted to see me. Preston took a deep breath. Because I miss you. And because I've been putting pieces together over the past few months, and I think I really screwed up. I didn't respond, just kept waiting. I didn't realize Mom and Dad didn't go to your graduation until Uncle Floyd mentioned it at Thanksgiving dinner. I genuinely thought they went to both events somehow. They told me they'd gone to your graduation in the morning and my game in the afternoon. They lied to me about it. My parents had lied to Preston too, controlling his reality the same way they'd tried to control mine. They didn't go to my graduation, Preston. They chose your regional championship game instead. Same time, 200 miles away, and they picked you over me. Preston looked physically sick. Sloane, I'm so sorry. I didn't ask them to do that. I didn't even know it was the same day as your graduation. If I'd known there was a conflict, I would have told them to go to your graduation instead of my game. Your graduation was way more important. I believed him. He wasn't the villain here. He was just the kid who'd been used as a weapon. Preston continued, words spilling out faster now. After Uncle Floyd said something about the graduation, I started actually paying attention to family dynamics instead of just floating through everything. I went back through family photos from the past few years. You're barely in any of them, and when you are there, you're always in the background or on the edge. Nobody's ever standing next to you or putting their arm around you. Someone had finally noticed. After 22 years, someone in that family had actually seen the pattern. I asked Sienna directly what happened between you and the family, why you left. She told me you just decided one day that you didn't want to be part of the family anymore, that you were always kind of distant and finally made it official. But that explanation didn't make sense to me. So, I went through my old text messages and found one you sent me for my 17th birthday last year. You wrote this incredibly long, sweet message about how proud you were of me, how you hoped I'd get a baseball scholarship, how you believed in me. I never even responded. I didn't even text you back to say thank you. Preston started crying, actual tears running down his face while we sat in this coffee shop. I took you completely for granted. We all did. And am so sorry. I told him everything then, the full story from my perspective. The years of being overlooked and erased, the graduation day that broke me, the party for him the next day that I wasn't invited to, the lies they'd told about me to extended family, the way they'd painted me as mentally unstable for having normal human emotions and setting boundaries. Preston listened to all of it, and I watched him process information that shattered his understanding of our family. I got a $10,000 car for my 18th birthday, he said slowly, like he was seeing it for the first time. And you got nothing for graduating college with highest honors. I got a text message from Mom that said, "That's wonderful, sweetie," sent 4 hours after my ceremony ended. That was my entire graduation celebration. Preston put his head in his hands. That's so messed up. That's really, genuinely messed up, and I can't believe I never noticed. You were a kid, Preston. You're not responsible for their choices or their dysfunction. But I appreciate you being willing to see it now. He looked up at me with red eyes. I need to tell you something, and I don't know if this helps at all, but I need to say it. I don't think I want to play baseball anymore. That genuinely shocked me. What? I love baseball, but I don't love it the way Dad loves it. Has been living out his failed coaching dreams through me since I was 6 years old. I'm exhausted. I want to study environmental science and maybe work for the National Park Service someday. But every single time I try to bring it up with Mom and Dad, they shut me down immediately and tell me I'm throwing away my future. The golden child was a cage too, just a prettier one with better food. Preston, if you don't want to play baseball, then don't play. It's your life, not Dad's do-over. If I quit baseball, I think Dad will completely lose it. It's the only thing he actually cares about. Then let him lose it. You can't sacrifice your own happiness and future to protect his ego or fulfill his failed dreams. That's not your responsibility. Preston smiled sadly. That's what you did, isn't it? You stopped sacrificing yourself to make them happy. Yeah, I did. And it was the best decision I ever made. Preston leaned forward, nervous. Can I stay in your life? Even if I'm still living with them and technically still part of that family. I thought about it carefully, considering whether keeping contact with him would undermine my boundaries or pull me back into their drama. You can stay in my life. But you need to understand something clearly. I'm never coming back to Portland for family events. Not for holidays, not for birthdays, not for your high school graduation next year. If you want me in your life, it has to be on my terms. Coffee like this when you drive to Seattle, phone calls when we both have time. But I'm never going back to that family system. Preston nodded quickly. I completely understand. Can I text you sometimes? Even if it's just random memes or dumb jokes. I laughed. Genuinely laughed. Yeah, you can text me random stuff. Preston stood up to leave, then turned back with one more thing to say. Sloane. Yeah, I'm really proud of you. For graduating summa cum laude, for leaving when you needed to, for changing your name and building a whole new life from scratch. That took incredible courage, and I respect you so much for doing it. I hadn't realized how desperately Ed needed to hear those words from someone in my biological family until he said them. Thank you, Preston. That means a lot. He hugged me, and I let him, and for just a moment I had my little brother back. I love you, he said quietly. I love you too. He left the coffee shop, and I sat there for a long time watching rain streak down the window. 3 months later, in late spring, my life had continued blooming in ways I'd never imagined possible. I got another promotion at work to marketing manager, a title I'd thought would take years to achieve. I'd started dating someone I met through Ruby's friend group, a woman named Phoebe who worked as a graphic designer and made me laugh until I couldn't breathe. We'd moved into a bigger apartment together, a one-bedroom with an actual bedroom and a small balcony where we grew herbs in pots. Preston texted me regularly, usually sending memes but sometimes updates on his life. He'd quit baseball at the end of his senior year. Dad had stopped speaking to him for a month, giving him the silent treatment and refusing to acknowledge his existence at family dinners. But Preston had enrolled in community college to study environmental science, and in his texts, I could feel his relief and happiness. Turns out I'm so much happier when I'm doing what I actually want, instead of what Dad wants for me, he texted one day. Imagine that, I replied with a smile. One evening in May, I sat down and wrote a letter to my parents that I knew I'd never send. I wrote about the pain they'd caused, the years of feeling invisible, the graduation day that had broken something fundamental inside me. I wrote about how forgiveness doesn't have to mean reconciliation, how I could release my anger without letting them back into my life. I wrote that I hoped someday they'd understand what they'd done and why it was so damaging, but I wasn't holding my breath waiting for that epiphany. When I finished the letter, I burned it page by page in my kitchen sink and washed the ashes down the drain. A ritual of release. Exactly 1 year after my college graduation, on the anniversary of the day that changed everything, I threw myself a party. The invitation I sent to friends read, celebrating 1 year of freedom. Ruby, Zachary, Daphne, Troy, Phoebe, Margot, who flew in from Portland, Professor Hartman, coworkers from Cascade Digital, and new friends I'd made through various activities. 20 people crammed into my one-bedroom apartment, laughing and dancing and celebrating. Someone asked what exactly we were celebrating, and I raised my glass of wine. The day I chose myself over people who would never choose me. The day I legally became Sloane Adelaide Brooks. The day I learned that sometimes the bravest, most necessary thing you can do is walk away from people who don't value you, even if they're family. Everyone cheered and clinked their glasses. Preston video called from his dorm room at community college, joining the toast from 200 miles away. To Sloane, the bravest person I know, he said through the screen. To Sloane. Everyone echoed, and I felt more loved and seen in that moment than I'd felt in 22 years with my biological family. That night after everyone left and Phoebe fell asleep in our bed, I stood on our balcony looking at the Seattle skyline with its twinkling lights. I thought about Juliet Caldwell, that invisible girl who'd spent her entire life waiting to be seen, begging for crumbs of attention and validation from people who would never give them. I didn't miss her. Sloane Adelaide Brooks was who I was always meant to be. Strong, independent, surrounded by people who chose me every single day, not out of obligation, but out of genuine love and respect. My family had ignored my graduation day on purpose, made a conscious choice that my achievement didn't matter as much as my brother's baseball game. So I changed my name and vanished forever from their lives. And in doing so, I finally found myself. The lesson I learned through all of this pain is that family isn't just biology and shared DNA. Family is who shows up for your important moments. Family is who celebrates your achievements and holds space for your pain. Family is who makes room for you at the table and values your presence. Sloane had learned the hardest way possible that some families are fundamentally toxic, and walking away isn't failure or weakness or cruelty. Walking away is survival. It's self-preservation. It's choosing to build the life you deserve instead of waiting forever for people to give you the love you've always needed but will never receive from them. I was free now, truly free. And that freedom was worth everything I'd left behind. I went to bed that night peaceful and whole, knowing with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. Juliet Caldwell was gone, erased, a ghost of a girl who'd never really existed except as a reflection of other people's indifference. Sloane Adelaide Brooks was real, solid, alive. And for the first time in my life, I was home. So here's my question for all of you watching. Have you ever had to walk away from family or people who were supposed to love you? Have you ever felt invisible in your own life? Drop a comment below and share your story, because I promise you're not alone in this experience. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories about people who chose themselves and built the lives they deserved. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to walk away from toxicity, even when it's family. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope wherever you are in your own journey, you find the courage to choose yourself and surround yourself with people who truly see you and value you. You deserve that. We all deserve that. Wishing you all the strength to build your own chosen family and the peace that comes from knowing your worth. Take care of yourselves.